MFF way. But
No,
I love the story those three fights tell.
I totally agree. And I love, you know what, like if you'd asked me again, I hadn't seen this movie in quite a long time. And if you'd asked me to give like sort of the brief synopsis without having watched it more recently, I would have said, MMA movie kind of, yeah, to the MTV crowd, like you were saying earlier. And if you said like, is there any substance to this movie? Like, are there any sort of themes that are pervasive that are, that you're going to really take away and think about? I probably would have said no. But honestly, upon rewatching it, I love sort of Jake's like journey of learning to take responsibility. He's had some difficult circumstances that have happened in his life with his dad, and he's, whatever, trying to navigate this new world of Florida that I'm going to have to get you to tell me more about. And the idea like that he's learning, he's becoming a man. He's learning to take responsibility for his actions and recognizing that there are circumstances in life where that you don't have control over, but you can only control yourself and your response. And so, I was sort of like, as a young, this is a movie that, I think any young guy would probably benefit from watching and hopefully taking something like that away from. I know maybe I didn't when I was in my 20s and watching this, but watching it now when I'm much older, I sort of went, oh, there's a little bit of substance here to this.
I mean, control the outcome. I love that Roka, Djimon Hounsou, who there's a scene in this movie where he picks up a guy and just slams him, and it looks like he's just lifting up a paper bag. I'm like, what? I don't know if you remember that scene. It's 3 seconds long. Yeah. But Hounsou just owns this kid. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I mean, he's like, if you fight outside my gym, you can't come back. That's a great lesson. But also, when you're an angry kid and you don't have an outlet, you're gonna go fight. Like, you will. And so I like, at the end, Roka took him back, and he's gonna go fight McCarthy at the end. McCarthy beat the living daylights out of Evan Peters. Oh my God, like Evan Peters is in this, which is,
it was also, I kind of forgot that it was him that was like the sidekick in this movie. It was so funny to see him in this.
And he's good. I like him in this movie.
And he's awesome.
I like that he's just like, listen, I want to come back and train with you. I want to fight, but this guy just beat him up. He did this. He wasn't going to go fight McCarthy in some back alley with, knives and hands tied together. This is the beatdown with thousands of people in a ref. I mean, this is the safest place to go. And this McCarthy, I don't think he was going to stop until they had this fight. So I kind of like that Jake controlled it. Jake said, I'm going to go here and I'm going to fight. I'm going to see if we meet up in this tournament. And he controlled the outcome. It wasn't fighting out of anger. It's just going, I got to get this over with. I got to go fight. I got to go do this. And you're right. I guess I didn't see this movie when I was younger. I watched it when I was older. But I still like that lesson. It's a really different lesson in one of these movies, if that makes sense. Where it's
absolutely, well, and again, we're talking about like, is this movie a great representation of MMA or not? And I would say that, say what you will about the fight scenes, which I think are great, and I think that they did a great job with it. But in terms of the spirit of martial arts, which is that exact idea that, you go to the gym, you train, it's an outlet, you learn how to handle yourself and to protect yourself. But the idea is that you never want to be in those situations. You don't go to the MMA gym so that you can learn to, be the tough guy out on the street. And so in that sense, this movie completely encapsulates that spirit of martial arts.
And Jake leaves when he finds out that McCarthy was disqualified. He's like, I don't want to fight this Mohawk guy. I'm out of here. I remember watching that going, what just happened? So I really appreciated that about it. And like another thing too is this movie kind of that had so many parallels to my kind of careers. Not career. I never had a career. To getting many times getting punched in the head. So I remember the first time I did jujitsu, I got so mad because it was against the guy that was a lot older than me, a lot smaller than me, and he just would hit my arm, he'd get my leg, he would just every time I got submitted, and I was like, just stand with me, and he goes, no, I'm not going to stand with you, and I'm good at jujitsu, and so it would infuriate me that someone 30 pounds less than me, 20 years older than me, is just like clearing the mat. I mean, just laughing me off the floor. So when Jake gets his butt kicked by that kid, I was like, yeah, I've been there. Like, seen that. And then in high school,
100%.
When I was in high school, I had like boxing gloves in the back. I had boxing gloves in the back of my Dodge Shadow. And if anybody had wanted to box in a backyard, in a street, I took some beat downs too. I remember one time, the first time I ever got hit in the stomach, I just collapsed. It was a 5-second boxing fight. I remember boxing like one of the big football guys, and I ended up like puking all over the place because I was dehydrated. Like you know how, dude, when you wing punches, you get exhausted.
Yeah.
And then, junior year in high school, my coach locked up the weight room, and I boxed 3 people in a row, and I won those. And it was just, and then I would go to bars like Buffalo Bills and just boxing bars and box like adults when I was 18 for money. But seeing the Florida fight crowds, like you would box. It was kind of weird. And at my high school, they would do this thing where they would do boxing matches. 200 people would come, 100 people would come, 200 people would come. Then they would film promo videos. Every fighter got a promo video, and there was a referee, and people would box. And so I don't know. It was all it felt, the Florida that they captured in this movie felt very real to me.
Is it true that everybody has a guest house?
Yeah. Yeah, we all do, man. Oh yeah. Yeah, it takes up a lot of land, but gigantic.
Yeah. Yeah, the property tax payments are unbelievable, but it's worth it, I guess, eh?
And also, man, like just, he lives in an apartment. Like I lived in an apartment with my mom. Like she wasn't married for a while, and it was I don't know. The whole movie sort of plays very Florida to me with all the outfits and the rich kids. I didn't really live in a rich area of town, but I mean, you had those kids with like you have the big houses on the water that are really insanely pricey, but then a couple miles down the road you have like the trailer parks. So you had this interesting group of different people around, but there's always fights. I don't know I'm sure in every state, in every country all around the world there are that, but they definitely captured the Florida essence pretty good here, man, in this film. And they filmed there, and it feels authentically Florida, and that made me happy too.
Yeah. One question that I had for you, because I know that you're, you do an analysis on this type of stuff, and maybe this is something that you would have caught. So talk to me about, like, I feel like I remember in and around the time that this movie came out that the camera shots where they're sort of like they're like striking into the camera, they're punching or they're kneeing right into the camera. Was that something that was sort of new in this movie, or had that been around? Like, what did you think when you saw that again?
No, I think they took a really innovative approach to the fighting in this movie, because they were talking about it. They had helmet cams. They put a cam on cam, so I called it the cam, which makes me really happy. They had they would put cameras on the fists, they put cameras on people's heads, they would put cameras on chest, they had people going towards the camera. So they got really creative with smaller cameras to make the fight to feel like you were in the fight and to give it a different look. So the director Jeff Wadlow, who he also made in 2020 he made a movie called Fantasy Island, which is one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. I love it. Okay. And he also wrote Bloodshot, which we're big fans of here at MFF. So he just, on the commentary, he wanted to have really different looks in this film. And the cinematographer on this movie is, oh crap, where is he? I'll have to look it up later. But he also shot Lincoln Lawyer, and before this he had done a bunch of music videos. So you can tell it had a very music video look in this film. So yeah, they had a cinematographer who had done a lot of music videos. They actually had an Oscar-winning production designer on this movie. Ida Random. She did Rain Man and like Tokyo Drift and all those movies before this. But it's they just wanted to look different. They wanted to, it's definitely fast cut, but they wanted it to be immersive and different, and they wanted the kids who were our age, I guess, watching at the time, teens, 20s, to like it. So yeah, I can't think of other fights that had this type of aesthetic to it, but I felt like it was pretty cool and kinetic. Other people think it's choppy and over edited, but I think that was the goal. They wanted this to be quick cuts, I think.
Yeah, and like the quick cut thing, like you do tend to see that in a lot of movies, from this time period.
It's Bond era, a Bourne era, right? Like those Bourne.
It's a real Bourne thing, yeah.
Everybody ripped off, like Bond ripped off Bourne.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just thought like that was something again that kind of jumped out at me, where we're talking about like, is this just sort of again like a kind of generic movie? But again, that was one of the things that really jumped out at me as being unique to this movie and kind of this movie's own style that I really liked.
No, and that's why like it has 22% on Rotten Tomatoes, but
really?
Yeah, that's really bad. But it has a 6.6 on IMDb, and that's good. That's actually really good. So I think critics watch this and they're like, oh, it's derivative, it's cliched. But if you were from, like, this is a very niche audience, but if you're from Florida and you used to fight, you're going to like this movie. It's, if you're into MMA. And also, listen, this movie tried. You don't hire Djimon Hounsou to be the Miyagi of this movie if you're trying to make a bad movie. Like, he
was incredible. I don't like it was, I said to my wife sort of midway through the movie that I felt a little bad for Sean Faris, the main character, kind of having to share these scenes with Djimon, because Djimon was just stealing the show. Like, his whole delivery of his stories about his brother and his father and everything that happened, it really made Sean Faris's, like, I'm getting into fights at school and I'm kind of the new kid at school problems seem a lot smaller than they were. I just felt like I couldn't, watching Djimon, he was captivating. It just seemed to me like he was notches above every other actor in this film. He was incredible.
Day and night. And I think this is a problem for a lot of movies where you get this central protagonist who, I mean, listen, Sean Faris, Jake Tyler had a lot of stuff going on. He lost his dad. He didn't take over when he was driving. When you're that age and you're a good athlete, you're angry, man. And if you don't have an outlet, you're going to fight. But I just think maybe, I really think that Sean Faris got the physicality down. So they trained for months in the behind the scenes videos to get this right. Hounsou screwed up Sean Faris's back really bad, slammed him. He messed up his back.
Yeah, I read that.
Oh yeah, just screwed him up. And then he goes, that's the throw right there. That's when he did it. But they had kettlebells that they made were fake, but Sean Faris wanted to do all the real ones. I think he nailed the physicality of it. But to me, this movie is, Amber Heard's good in it too. And I really like Evan Peters, but this is Djimon Hounsou and Cam Gigandet's movie.
Absolutely.
I found a really cool article from Shea Serrano talking about how to make a good tournament movie or how to be a good villain. And he wrote this about McCarthy. He said, McCarthy, played by Cam Gigandet, is extremely talented, extremely handsome, and an extremely a-hole character. And the director said that he has a senator's son vibe, which I immediately understood. He said that.
Yeah.
And then he wrote, I love this. So when he's talking, he's trying to get Jake to fight him. And I like what he does. He does everything he can do to talk Tyler into fighting him, including but not limited to pretending to befriend him. When they first meet in the party, he pretends to be his friend. And then he appeals to what he assumes is Tyler's vanity. So he's not going in there to be mean with this fight. If he would have been nice the whole time and he would have fought Jake, they would have fought. It's weird. Like, it's really interesting. And then he tries to peer pressure him into it by loudly calling him out in front of everyone. And then in front of everyone, he genuinely compliments Tyler on his fighting ability. And then to get him more angry, he goes and kisses Baha. He's like, oh, this is my girlfriend. She brought you here. Like, she set you up. And then then he compliments Tyler again, that right fist, man. Like, that's a beast. You're a tough guy. And then finally he blames Tyler for his father's death. But it's like an 8-step process. To
psychological warfare, right? He's calling out the other alpha dog and trying to get him to step up and test his manhood, right?
Yeah, but he's so good at it. Like, you know what annoys me is, say a movie's bad, that's fine, or I don't care, don't like a movie. But to say that Cam Gigandet is not really good in this scene, you didn't watch it. You just clearly hated this movie, and you think nothing about it is good because it's a good performance right there.
I wanted to go in there and fight him. I mean, yeah, it was incredible. Again, going back, like, we've all gone to high school with that guy, and like he captured that essence so perfectly. Now, I have a question for you about the casting, because you mentioned the IMDb rating, and one of the things that I like to do, I'm not gonna research these movies, super in depth, but I do like to read the IMDb like trivia notes. And I came across in this movie something that really caught my eye about this movie. So it talks about the role of Baha, and it mentions that there was another actress that auditioned for the role of Baha. She was told by the director that her audition reminded him of Christopher Walken, and therefore she did not get the part.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That absolutely blew my mind.
And it was Jillian Jacobs. I think she was.
Jillian Jacobs.
Yeah, she was in Community.
Yes. Like, is Amber Heard not exactly giving off a Christopher Walken